Hello and welcome to another Thursday night. Tonight I want to, I want to get some feedback on last week's talk and maybe ask you some questions to see what was retained and get into a little more about the practice. Came up in the last class actually because of what I was watching with the students practicing, so it made me want to get into it a little more. And what makes this practice so profound actually? We can say that about all martial arts if they're done the way I believe they should be done, but I don't want to say too much right now. I want to see. So give me some feedback or questions or, yeah, anything you remember from last week that you maybe want me to elaborate on or got lost on or more curious about. So let me see some hands. Let me see what you want to emphasize. I want to get into that some. Okay, Mr. McEwen, I'll unmute you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, you brought up last week, you had asked some students how often they meditate, how often they train. I live by myself, and when I'm home by myself, I get like anxious. So I like to get out of the house to be around people.
Hmm.
And I like going to class now, not doing the Zoom. I go into the classroom to do the training. And how do I get over that? Because I know in the past we talked about people who are afraid to be up by themselves. I mean, as soon as they walk in the house, they got to turn the TV on or something to feel, something. But when you live by yourself, I mean, you obviously you have a family, you got a lot of things going on, the interaction with students and everything. But I'm by myself here, and most of my friends work all week. I don't see them to the weekends, and I have a part-time job. I see people, and I'm happy to get out of the house. But when I'm home by myself, it makes me a little edgy. It's kind of like get depressing, kind of lonely type of thing.
I like you sharing a question like that. That's beautiful, and
Thank
it's
you.
right up my alley of what I want to get into. So that was good. But I want to ask you because it came up today with a patient somehow. This patient was telling me how they used to be, they used to be an extrovert, and now they're an introvert. Like they used to love to be around people, and now they don't like being around people. And I found that very interesting because personally, my experience. Um, I've always been an introvert. I can be with people, I can enjoy people, but the thing about an introvert is that they like to spend more alone time, and groups make you tired. It's like extrovert groups give you energy. Introvert groups take your energy. So it's like too much party, too much visiting, too much, being around people can be exhausting to an introvert. And that's been my experience. But really because of the practice and because of this teaching all these years and being around students, I've gotten a lot better, but it's just my natural way. So when someone tells me that they were an extrovert and now they're an introvert, that seems odd to me. So what do you think you are, sir?
I've always been an introvert, but when I was working as a cop, I was probably working, 50, 60 hours a week. And I was dealing with people's problems all day long, all the nonsense, the politics and headquarters. By the time I get home and I walk in the front door, I just want peace and quiet. I don't want to see anybody. I don't want any phones ringing anymore. I just like, that was it. But now that I've been retired for almost 7 years, now I'm the opposite. So I've gone from one extreme to the other.
Okay, this is different though. This is work and trouble. You're talking about things that are negative. I'm talking more general in your life. You can even think when you were a kid. Did you like to be around the groups more? Did you feed off of being around groups, or did you like to spend time by yourself? I'll tell you what, even my first class with the Grandmaster Park, okay? Um, this has always been my way. So we have a group of students, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 in the class down in, where were we? Towson in Baltimore area. And we train it, warm up like any class, and then I would go off in the corner by myself where everybody else was either talking or practicing together. And so he'd walk over to me and everything okay. He says, "Oh, you like to really focus. You like to practice by yourself, blah, blah, blah." It's like, and I remember these moments because I didn't really give it any thought. He would just give us something to practice and I would go drill it for reps. I would just keep going, but I wasn't talking to people and stuff like that, where other people really like to talk to each other. I've always been one to go out in the park by myself and just train for hours and hours, and I'm never missing anybody. And so where in there, and I'm asking too, what you're thinking of, your perspective of this. Where in there is just my dedication to practice and my love of practice and the enjoying the alone time, you see? So other people have to be in a class. How many students, in fact, I think you started like this, not just meditation though. It's, if I ask a student, how's your practice coming along? Oh, not as good as it should be. How much you practice? Not as much as it's always that answer. And it's hard for me to understand because that's how I would spend my time. I would be practicing. But most people, most students that I've seen, it's not 50-50. It's got to be 80 or 90, 10, 80-20 or 90-10, that they don't practice unless they're in class. And this is not just martial arts. It could be people going to the gym. There's working out at home, and there's working out at the gym, and there's people who have to be in a class. Something like a CrossFit became so big, so popular. People love, some expert puts workout of the day, and everybody just follows this workout, and they're all interacting with each other, and this is what drives them. Whereas my workout would always be at home by myself, and that was just natural for me. I want to focus, and I want to get it done. It's like, so when I learned what an introvert and extrovert is, it just fits. So that's why you have to really look at yourself now, based on your question. Do you need the group class? Do you understand?
I would say so, but I think the difference is you have a much stronger sense of being connected to something. So when you're practicing by yourself, you're not by yourself, or you know how to connect. When I'm by myself, all I think about is being by myself. I don't have any kind of connection to anything, really.
Okay, you're taking it where I want to go. I get it. But like, this is not a good or a bad, except for where I want to go with this conversation.
I guess it depends on what you're doing. Like if I want to go for a hike or a walk, I prefer to go by myself, because if I bring my
Okay.
lady friend with me, she complains all the time. And what I want to do is I push her over a cliff. Say, "Get away from me! You drive me nuts." That type of thing. Where if I go scuba diving, I go on vacation with a group of people. I love doing that. So it depends on what I'm doing. But with our specific training and meditating,
If
it
it's
makes me feel
something you
more.
love
It
to
makes
do,
makes me makes me feel very. Nothing makes me feel more alone than when I'm either meditating by myself or I'm training by myself. One of those type of things. That's
if
what
it's something you love to do, you just said scuba diving. If it's something you love to do, would you prefer to do it with others or by yourself?
Oh, with others.
Because you keep bringing up a negative, like somebody complaining. This is, of course, nobody likes that. But you definitely like being with others more.
Yes.
Yeah, see, something like that, I could go either way. I don't know how the others feel about that, but it's just, it's the same thing. It's like, even in a group, okay, if I was scuba diving, I'd probably go explore by myself. You know what I mean? So I'm with the group, but I'm not with the group. It's like, yeah, we talk about what we did, but when I go in, I probably go by myself and just like explore things. So, and you would probably want to, go with a couple others, right, to explore together.
Yes.
Yeah, it sounds like you're an extrovert, and again, nothing good or bad. It's a natural thing. But here's the thing, and why you're having problems with the, addressing your question really. Okay, you say I'm more connected. Maybe because of practice, though. We're talking getting close to 40 years of always meditation, right? This practice is designed. This is what I mean by right and not the way I train, not the way I believe is right. So there's three aspects. I was having a conversation with Sifu Brown, my friend in the Detroit area, and he told me he was doing a talk on how martial arts, there's three main aspects that are focused on. Fighting, self-defense, right? The physical part. Most people think of martial arts as self-defense and fighting. And it absolutely should include that, and you should absolutely be able to defend yourself if you're practicing martial arts. Seriously. Another one is the spiritual. Now you have to go to the more East Asian arts to get into the spiritual, because they're linked to Dhammo, Bodhidharma, which was an Indian monk, and Zen Buddhism, Chan Buddhism, Taoism. These things were tied into the East Asian martial arts, and it taught people how to be in this world, how your practice applies to your day-to-day life, and how to raise your consciousness, etc., etc. So the practice was more than just fighting or punching and kicking, and it was more about developing yourself. And this goes back, I mean, these writings go way back, hundreds, if not thousands of years in some cases. So the spiritual side would raise the martial side. And I'll tell you, one of the most profound statements is not, so we say self-defense. So this is realizing there's no self to defend. See, now fear doesn't get in the way of a life or death situation. It's like, you know, you can't die. So now your full practice, your full abilities can come out because you don't get in your own way. So there's a true correlation with your level of attainment martially, as well as, yeah, your ability to sit still and be perfectly comfortable. It brings that realization. And then the third one, well, you know, I have an acupuncture clinic, and that's, people ask me, how'd you get into this? Through the martial arts. I would have never thought to learn Chinese medicine if it wasn't for Chinese martial arts. Because even when I was in China in 1992, when we were different, this is fairly common with the higher level, older generation, where one Shepei, we went to the hospital with him. And he was doing all this hands-on healing. Because the Qigong, you develop, you've heard of Reiki? Yeah,
Yes, sir.
people heard of Reiki. So this is automatic with Qigong. You train properly, you can automatically do Reiki. There's no special training for Reiki. You have control of your body's energies, you can say. Okay? You know, you can put your hand on something and you can draw a lot of heat there very quickly, and that's going to be a healing thing. You're going to be passing on yourself into them. So that's a natural progression. And this Shepei was sitting there, he's a chain smoker. He's smoking with one hand and healing with the other one, and talking to us. And he had patients lined up in the hospital. It was very funny. No concept of, you know, the contradiction there. But then others would be acupuncture. So it's more, a little higher, more professional training to do acupuncture, or the herbology. In fact, my second teacher, Dr. Yang Jingming, he had me learn how to massage by literally massaging him. He's also the one that would sit me down at lunchtime and meditate. So we would be training all morning. I would drive up like 3 or 4 in the morning to get to Boston. And then when I go to class, I have a few classes, and then there'll be a 2-hour break for lunch. And everybody would be gone, and there'd be a couch. He'd say, sit there, and he'd sit on the other end of the couch, and then that would be it for 2 hours. We'd just sit there. And there was really no instruction, just, you knew, just be quiet. And you're forced to meditate. So that was my more serious introduction to meditation. Whereas before that, I would visualize, and this just came out of movies and things. Right? As a kid, as a teenager, when I started learning the martial arts, I would sit and visualize, for example, what I did in class, or what you practice physically. I would also sit and practice mentally. So I would do visualization of the practice. And that's why I never had a problem remembering things, because I would do the physical movement and I would also do the mental practice, visualizing. So things came because of repetition, just so much repetition. I had that much passion for it, that much desire for it. And that starts to develop your ability to put your mind where you choose. So from visualizing the forms or the movements or the practice to sitting with a master just on the couch and shut up, to eventually learning the breathing and then other types of meditation, bringing happiness to yourself, making a good feeling inside. And then when you actually spend the time, you can create a new habit in your body that not only do you have control of your thoughts, but you can make the habit of good feelings rather than bad feelings, because you mentioned anxiety. Again, what's natural in your body, but also what's a habit because of repetition. We have so many subconscious thoughts that we're not even aware of, and it can create a lot of anxiety. It can be memories you have. It can be, experiences that were traumatic. Why, when you're alone, and this is for you to ask yourself, why, when you're alone, do you have anxiety? And I understand you're asking me that. And then you kind of gave the answer, like, well, you're more connected. Yeah, but what does that mean? Some people have religion and they believe the teaching of a priest or pastor or a rabbi, etc., and they have to get the answers from them. But I believe you can get the answers yourself. Truth will be revealed when you get out of the way. So the teachings of, let's say, Taoism or Buddhism, which is really the root of this, the spiritual root of Bagua Zhang, teachings of letting go, non-attachment, but also, so how do you control your thoughts? Does anybody know that answer at this point? You don't necessarily have to answer. Just raise your hand if you think you know. And then when I give the answer, you can see if you were right. It's actually fair. It's one of those things where it's just like, oh yeah, that makes sense. It's nothing complicated actually. No hands went up, so okay. You initiate the thought instead of the thought initiating you and your feelings and your experience. It's like walking around all day with a song in your head. Well, who's in control there? Somebody planted something in your mind, and you don't seem to be able to get it out. I think you should consciously get it out. But you can't stop the song from playing. What you do is think of something else. You bring a thought up. Now, it shouldn't be something that's trouble. It shouldn't be something that makes you stressed, It's like, I brought a new thought up, but it's like, how am I going to pay my mortgage this month? This is not going to be helpful. Could you make a thought of your favorite person? And that one came to my mind because that's a meditation we practice. Happiness meditation. Remember, from the horizon in the ocean coming towards you, you're on the beach. And eventually when they get close enough, you see, oh, it's your favorite person. You know they're coming, and then you can see them. And so it makes this beautiful feeling inside. Or the flower meditation. Who thinks ugly thoughts when they think of a flower? So if you regularly practice flower meditation, you're going to have a habit of good feelings. Good feelings open things up inside. So why you have anxiety is because you don't have good thoughts. Also, busyness, busy mind. Gotta do, gotta do, gotta do. That's a habit. And this is no attack on you, sir. This is on just about everybody. Why is meditation the hardest thing we do? Because, oh geez, it's worse today than ever. Think about it. Who can sit still for seconds? I mean, the phones and everything that follow us everywhere we go. Constant texting people. You'll have people at a table across from each other texting someone else or two or three other people. It's like they're not even in the moment at all. And being in the moment is so foreign that it's just, huh? They don't even think it's important because that anxiety, that restlessness, has a sense of fulfillment by staying busy. And I do not believe this is by accident. You want to keep people distracted and so you can eventually keep control of them? Yeah, that's brilliant. Put them in a state that needs constant stimulation. Keep giving stimulation, and then eventually the mind doesn't even know how to sit still at all. So what has always been the most difficult thing we do, and before I was even born, you go back generations, it was always the hardest thing to do. Today, it's I don't want to say impossible, but it seems impossible to people to sit and do nothing. Now, a very common experience with if you actually start to sit. Well, let me do a little bit of the sequence of, let's say, the flower meditation without necessarily teaching it at this moment. But so you sit down and maybe you do some breathing using the breath as a focal point. A few moments, just get yourself centered by doing breathing exercises. Then you go through the process of planting and watching grow your favorite flower, your favorite color. And you watch it come all the way to bloom. Now you're not supposed to watch it die. You're supposed to end the meditation when it's in full bloom with all its beauty, and there's a blue sky with fluffy white clouds in the background, and there's rolling hills, and it's the cool breeze, and everything's just perfect, and you feel amazing. And then from there, a lot of people will finish the meditation and get up. But I'm saying, I guess I'll say when you're more advanced, because you're going to sit longer, you finish the visualization. And then you just be in that moment and let it just sort of fade, working towards no thought. So no thought is truly that moment of just being, no doing. As soon as you think, you're doing again. There's no meditation if you're thinking. Yeah, there's visualizations, and that is a type of meditation, but when we're talking about reaching no mind, the empty mind, this state that is very similar to when you fall asleep and you wake up and it's like an hour went by and it felt like 5 minutes, or hours went by. It's like a good night's sleep goes so quick. That means you reach delta, the lower, the bigger waves, but they're very, very slow, big waves. Like instead of beta, it's like. So think of these very deep, deep sleep. So a real meditation, higher level meditation, is like sleep, but you're conscious, if that makes sense. You're conscious like a stump in the wood. You're not saying that the tree is necessarily conscious when it's a dead stump, but I'm saying it's like you don't have anything to do. You're just there. And all the world is happening around you. And that's where time can go by and you become unaware of the time. See, when you're struggling, time seems to go very slowly. And it's a struggle to keep going. But when your mind goes deep enough, you lose the time. So that's a powerful indicator right there. If it feels like 5 or 10 minutes and 2 hours went by, yeah, you went deep, but you're not sleeping. That means you controlled your mind. Because when you're sleeping, you're not in control of your mind. So there's a correlation there in terms of sleep and meditation, but meditation is controlling your thoughts and sleep is being unconscious. They're not the same. Everybody sleeps and very few can control their thoughts. Someone who truly meditates to that level where you can just be, that sense, like I said, habit, because you spend more time there every day, that's a habit where you can, in the moment, just be. You just stop your thoughts. Because your mind connects to the moment. It becomes receptive rather than, thoughts coming out. You're just taking in, your awareness just goes up. What's happening right now? What's my feeling? But as soon as I ask those questions for real, I'm not meditating, am I? I'm saying you become one with those feelings. You become one with all that is. And it's quick, instant. And then you're just back to whatever you're doing. But you can get there quick because your body's used to that habit. If you're used to it, it's very simple. It's like you can be looking at something like a ball, like here, marker board, eraser. I don't know if it'll show up on here, but I'm looking at this. And if I focus on this long enough, I'll see a flower. And that's interesting because my teacher actually said that's what could happen. And it happens. If you practice the flower meditation enough, when you go into that state of mind, you'll lose track of the physical, what's actually there in front of you, and your mind will become what it's used to meditating on. It will start to become that thing. You're in meditation. But that's why we want to get past that. You want to get to the point of just emptying the mind. So remember, we talk about, was it Herbert Benson's 4 components? So, comfortable position, quiet place. A quiet place, comfortable position, passive attitude, focal point. You have to have a focal point. And he was very smart. He wrote a follow-up, and he added something, and he called it faith. One thing I always had with my teachers, or there's no point in being with them, is I had absolute trust. Because I did my due diligence before ever starting with somebody. And then I just shut up and listened. I mean, when I was younger, I asked a lot of questions and kind of made trouble because that's not the traditional way. Your student's supposed to shut up. Teacher shows, and then you just go do. And you learn by experience. But I would ask a lot of questions because I came up that way, and it was just my curiosity get the best of me. What about? What about? And I'm sure early on, well, Yang Jingming understood my character, but if he introduced me to other people, friends of his or something, and they were very traditional, they would be offended by me. Well, who's this guy? Why is he asking me that? It's like they think I'm questioning their knowledge or what they're saying. It's like I'm attacking them, they think, or being critical of them. And I wasn't. I wanted to know what they knew. But you're not supposed to do that, apparently. So, point being, total trust. Teacher says do something, you just do it. And allow the experience to teach you. And the better I got at that, the better the experiences and understanding came. And so if the teacher said spend 30 minutes meditating or an hour walking the circle or whatever it was, I would make sure I did that. That was part of my training program. And so then the answers come, and it's no longer, like the religious, what the pastor says, it's like, oh, it's what you know through experience. So now, if you have this experience, you said connection. Yeah, I agree that because there's a habit there. See, here's the thing. This is very important. Nobody's more connected than anybody else. You're just as connected as me, but you think I'm more connected because you're less aware of your connection. And that's where the practice helps you realize your connection. You can't disconnect, you'd be dead. And even when you're dead, you're not disconnected. You go on. Spirit is eternal. But spirit is a perspective. If there's only one, all there is many, many aspects, but it's all one. And that's why I said the spiritual, reaching a high spiritual level can help the martial level, because you don't have this fear of having a self to defend. You just do what the moment asks for. You may win, you may lose, you may live, you may die, but you don't have those thoughts. If you have those thoughts, you're in trouble, especially if the other person's highly skilled and doesn't have those thoughts working against him. So you think about, I mean, you were a police officer, so, and I don't know, I've got plenty of police officers, fire, people I work on that have PTSD, soldiers, and I don't know, you know, your detailed life, but what's bringing the anxiety? And I'm not asking you to answer that. I'm saying you have to recognize that you're not there anymore, whatever that trauma may have been. But there can be physiological changes that happen because of that, because of what happened. So I want to say this practice saved my life as well as my family. When we went through our most horrific trauma, when things were at their worst, I went out and practiced. I get a terrible phone call, I went out and practiced. That came from understanding what the practice can do. What most people do when they're going through a problem or a trauma or stress is they don't practice. They get focused on the problem. So I was very, very fortunate because I was training many years already, so I had that advantage. But you know, just got the worst news possible. Go right to my yard and start practicing. Then practice for a while, I forget the problem, come back. Now I can deal with whatever the issue is from a less emotional place. Completely different experience. Completely different experience of this whole existence, actually. Because you're not allowing something that came from outside to control how you feel and how you live. Remember, the only thing we can really control in this world is how we respond to others, or how we respond to things. We have this belief we think is the truth, that it's the teenagers, or it's the spouse, or it's the job, my boss, or the government, or that all these things control how you feel. And this is only because you're allowing it. I mean that wholeheartedly. You just don't realize you're allowing it. Now, let's be honest. If I lived in a I don't know, where there's bombs dropping all around, well, I'm absolutely going to be more stressed. And you cannot pursue you cannot have spiritual pursuits when you're in survival mode. But there's real survival mode where there's bombs dropping around you. And then there's imagined survival mode, where people, because of emotional attacks all day and the constant busyness and trying to keep up with everything, pay the bills, etc., that we're in always this low-level fight or flight. There's no other way to put it. And it's very real. But it's because of how you're responding. So even let's say, oh, I don't know, a Marine. They're trained to the point of being robotic under duress. But you could have 5 of them or 10 of them, and maybe 1 or 2 actually get to that point of being robotic, where the others are in a panic because, oh my God, I'm going to die. I'm just making a point. I have no idea what those percentages are, but it's human nature. That same situation, but we all respond differently. And the Marine or the Green Beret or something, there's more acceptance to the moment of what's happening, and I have to find a solution to this problem right now. So all the energy, all the focus is on the solution. And if you're being chased or there's bombs around, the solution may be simply getting to a safe place. But if you freeze and freak out like, oh my God, I'm going to die, yeah, you probably will, because you didn't get yourself to a safe place. I think of things like school shootings. I taught my children, you break a window and you get out of there. You don't let them sit you down in a room and let them hold you there. Hell no. You break a window, you get out of there and you run. And I tell them how to get to a place and hit SOS on their phone, and they know how to get to that place, so I can go pick them up or my wife can go pick them up. You see, it's preparation, not panic. If this happens, if something happens, some reason, something that's not right, that you need to get out of, you get out, you know where to go, you know what to do, and we will help you. It's the people without a plan, anxiety takes over. Okay, so that's going off into extremes there. Let's get back to, I'm alone at home. Only you can answer that question for yourself, obviously. But if you're only staying busy to not feel alone, like watching TV, diving into movies for hours and hours, or on the internet, and it's always, you have to keep yourself busy to be comfortable. You're feeding into the problem. There's nothing wrong with enjoying a movie or a good book or doing something. But if you always have to be doing something, then you are feeding into the problem of distracting yourself. It reminds me of a phrase people use a lot. It's like, how you doing? Oh, I'm keeping busy. It's this keeping busy, like they're busy, so they're somehow more satisfied or less troubled because they're just busy. And just being busy is not necessarily a good thing. Now, don't get me wrong. The average mind, the average human mind, and I would think a pretty high percentage of them, need, I want to say work. You need purpose. Something to pursue. But here's the thing. What is the monk at the monastery pursuing? You see, this is the thing where it doesn't have to be religious, but spiritual. You said, I'm more connected. Okay, that's because God, the source, the divine, however you want to see it, the universe, I realize there's nothing more important than that. And so if there's nothing more important than that, these times of being alone, I want to practice being connected. That way, when I'm busy, I can also maintain that sense of connection. And if I'm working with a patient or talking, I can be in the moment, not distracted by thoughts and busyness. I find that it helps everything I do. And if I'm not, doing my best with my wife or my children, and I'm far from perfect with any of this, I have my problems, but I'm saying I'm aware of it. And I don't let my ego control that situation where it's like I have to be right. I'll go by myself and say, okay, what did I do wrong there? Why am I always upsetting my 13-year-old? And then my wife will say, that's just what 13-year-olds do. I'd be like, no, I think I could figure this out. I'm being facetious, but it's a reality. It's like this the way my mind works. It's like, how can I do better? And I haven't gotten that figured out yet, but I'm working on it. And that's what I mean with living in a way that there's more meditation and more try to develop self-awareness. So when there is trouble with somebody, you can look at yourself as the problem instead of pointing the finger. I can't tell you how many parents say, well, I have teenagers, that's why. Is it? I mean, it's contributing, but your response to it is still the problem. The more we practice being centered, in control of our thoughts, the easier it gets. It's no different than building a muscle. You get stronger, everything gets easier. You get more centered and have a more quiet mind, everything is easier. It's the same. So last week I talked a lot about aspects of Bagua, and one of them really is learning to control your breathing, but that's late in the process, in the practice. And then I said, in the worst times of my life, I went out and practiced. I was talking physically. I didn't sit down and meditate. I went out and did something complex, some form or something. I would concentrate on the attacks and defenses and footwork and whatever, but my focus was there. Focal point. So that's where this practice is automatically a meditation. Sitting meditation will develop this habit of going deeper and also the depth of possibility, what you can experience. But moving meditation, be it Qigong or the martial side, no matter how fast, the better your focus and intention, the more it becomes a meditation. And Bagua Zhang has this unique aspect, this practice of walking the circle. So, the more a beginner, I mean, Qigong gets into it here and there, right? And when I say here and there, if you learn it, the ideal is just do it. Because some of the most profound experiences I have had practicing was simply walking the circle. So all I can do, and that's what I meant when I said trusting the teacher, all I can do is express what I've experienced, and then you have to do the time so you can decide for yourself whether I was right. But you have to be willing to work through the difficulty of being bored, being anxious, wasting time, thinking of other things, etc., etc. You have to commit to yourself. It's like my daughter throws 100 pitches so many times per week. It's like if she wants to be a pitcher, she has to do that. So if you want to gain what we're talking about, I don't want to say gain. If you want to experience what I'm talking about, the only way is to put in the time. And so, okay, so Mr. McEwen, you asked the question. You're retired, you're alone, you have time. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so no excuse. You want to change that, you can. Make your plans to see your friends. Do the things you love to do, scuba diving, etc. But you have the time. You need to set a goal. And if the things I'm talking about, if you want to get rid of that anxiety, you want to have the kind of control of the thoughts and the things that I'm describing, you have to write down, I suggest you write down a program or a commitment of what you're going to do to help you reach that goal of being more connected. Because I didn't come into this world more connected. Mm-mm. I can honestly say people in my family are more anxious, all of them. And it's the martial arts that has how I'm aware of that, and I don't have that like they do. 100% it's the practice. It's the tool. It's having the right tool. You know, I want to drive a nail. I have a hammer. I got the right tool. Try doing that with pliers. Break the pliers. You know, it's like the wrong tool. So if you have the tool, use the physical body as your focal point. You're learning the Qigong. Trust that if you do the reps, and in class, we try to get through more stuff, you know, so you can experience more changes. But in reality, it's like when I test people. Let's say the animals, for example, you just did the 8 animals and doing them. So 8 times each. And 8 times each could be left and right as 2, or 8 times each could be left and right as, no, that's not what I meant to say. Left and right, yeah, is 2, or left and right is 1 each. So that way you get 8 times each. So now you're forced to repeat something over and over. Now think about, what does a monk do in a monastery? They do a lot of mantras. What's a mantra? It's a phrase that they repeat so many times, just takes over the mind, dulls the thinking, because the only thought is the repetition of the mantra. So in addition to mastering the body through repetition, you're mastering the mind with the focus. So doing a couple of this and a couple of this and a couple of this, you'll get nowhere fast. Do the reps. Challenge yourself. Each animal 8 times. Left and right is 1. Try that. With breathing, with focus. Get through all 8 animals. You'll be getting somewhere slow. Because there's nowhere to get. You just start to benefit from the state of mind that comes from mastering your body through repetition. That's why every movement has intention. What's the intention? And that's something that could come up in class. You know, we take questions at the end of a class. What's the intention here if you don't know? Like a lion. The lion is rolling a ball. There's all this intention. You are both holding a ball, and it's like you're in a ball. That the ball is rolling. The whole body's connected to this. And there's the thrusting forward, and there's the maintaining this, you know, like if you have a ball and you can crush it, it's like the ball has resistance. So they have resistance there, and that becomes like somebody tries to hit you, you have defense. Your body shape creates an automatic defense. One hand defending, one hand attacking at the same time. Just for example, unicorn is like, it's forward and back, but it's up and down, and there's this feeling. And what happens as the hands pass each other? There's a sense there of something. It's like there's something physical between the hands. So you feel that correspondence. So all of these things, it's like, you know, people say like playing with chi. What is chi? I mean, in this case, it's like a magnetic type feeling. Something happening. You know, then there's those that twist, different directions. There's different, each one has its own focus. How much of it can you realize because of more repetition? See, that's the thing. There is, I just realized how much I'm going overtime. There's practicing to remember so you can follow the class comfortably. But there's practicing to develop a depth that's not so unlike sitting meditation. And then you're developing this habit of being active in the body, but focused or centered in the mind. That transfers very easily into your day-to-day life.
I just think that with anxiety comes impatience, where you're expecting results a lot sooner, and you get frustrated when you don't reach. You're artificially thinking that the goal is right here when it's a lot further than you realize. You're not in the state of reality of what it takes to get to what you want to go to. Anxiety and the impatience goes hand in hand.
Impatience comes from lack of focus and thinking there's someplace to go. When the Buddha was asked, why meditate? What do I have to gain? The Buddha answered, there's nothing to gain. You're going to lose all these anxieties. You're going to lose all these extra thoughts, all this impatience. You're going to lose it all. You're going to chip away and get to your true self. See? More to lose. When they make a sculpture, there's nothing added, only taken away. They chip the marble and they make this beautiful, right? There's nothing added. They just take away. How do you get to your true self? That's what you're looking for. But you do have to say, I'll bring you Yang Ming's 3 keys you have to have. Patience, perseverance, and a strong will. If any of those are missing, forget it. The strong will is what gets you to start every day and gets you to go through the reps we just talked about, regardless of this impatience or anxiety or anything. Keep going, keep trying to focus better, and you will get better at it. How long? No idea. You're special. Everybody's special. You have to find out for yourself what it's going to take. Let's go to meditation.
Thanks, sir.
Sir.